hadn't read it. And so while he's in the beginning, I'm reading my story. And so he had a son, him and his wife had a son that had been into LA County Jail. And that experience changed their son. But they didn't know how to approach it or how to deal with it. And so reading my story and my experience in LA County Jail and other racist experience from my lens kind of educated them on what their son went through. And then they were able to then now get him help because they learned through my story what he wasn't able to tell them. And so that is the shit that's important for me, not laughs and giggles.
So, is your book still stuck in production, or can we all invest in it and get it made?
I have to write back, and so yes, if there's anybody out there, I'm not anybody out there. Yeah, no, I have to write back. So,
but I think,
and for me, it's like it's so important about timing, and so like people know about the books out there, and so if it's 17 years from now, 17 years from now, right? Again, it's not for me to make a fictional story out of it. Right? I know you have to dramatize it a bit, but like it's not. I'm not going out to push it just to get a check on it.
I think that has to be one of the hardest things as an author. If you are alive and you've written your personal story and then you're like, okay, let's see what someone does. That's really hard to get right because it's your actual. Yes, you're watching it unfold. Like it's very hard. But I do think there's something interesting in like the adaptation world, right? 17 years, that's nothing, right? Wuthering Heights just came out. That was written Emily Bronte in 1800s, right? Which we could critique the adaptation in the wrong ways. But you know, my point is when you put your story out there, period, that's already a win. You are creating a foundation of who knows who's going to adapt your story in 50, 60, 70, 100 years from now, and what that is going to inspire. So something that I usually when I introduce myself, I always say I'm the daughter of a therapist and an artist, and that is intentional. But I say that because I was raised to believe that art, our expression of ourselves, is the most honest representation of humanity at a single point in time. And if that is the truth, what we are doing, whether it's on page or on screen, that is the preservation of history. And we don't know where that story is going to go in 50 years from now. So to be honest, I would rather pass away and let somebody write my story 100 years later because I would be very critical and overly involved in telling the story because it's your story, right? But I'm also like, go ahead and make that movie yourself.
I'm like, we'll just get investors, but you know, again, that's where I was coming from. It's like I couldn't sit back and watch that at all, even quietly. But it is very true that I think what hits the screen is very much the zeitgeist of our culture. It is this moment in history. It's what our priorities are, for better or for worse. What people are resonating with. You know, everything starts with a story and a well-written story. And that goes from taking a book, not necessarily a script, but if there's a book and then leading into a very fabulous adaptation. But it always starts with the story and it's gonna hit the bestseller list for a reason. And then that next step is people who are thinking, okay, a broader audience needs to see this, or a different audience needs to see this. But I think all of that's great. And I have no idea. Oh, timing. Okay, I was like, where's my cue? Because I could talk to this group forever. We've only got about 5 minutes, so I'm going to just jump to questions, even though I actually had more to share with you. But yes, this gentleman in the front.
I have a question. I think a lot of people here are curious about this. I know I am. Matthew, you talked about mass appeal and the changes that they're trying to make to yours. Keith, you were talking about how they're taking your life story and changing the facts of it. You know, what are the studios doing to try to make your good stories better for us? What do we need to tell them that we want to hear just your original work? What are they trying to do to make it better in our minds?
I couldn't answer that. I don't know. Like it just all depends on like who you've entrusted to. Because it's not even just the studio, right? It's who you brought in as the creator or the storyteller, the writer, right? And like Are they there to tell your story? Are they there to tell their story? Or like, what's the goal there, right? And, a lot of times it's like how you line up. And sometimes the studio puts so much money in that either they'll cut it or they'll just go with it.
It'll come down to, does it get viewers? Does it get clicks? Can we move on from it?
What's wrong with your story that it wouldn't get viewers? And Matthew, what's wrong
Well,
with
I
your
mean,
book?
I'm not saying it's a negative thing, and it was, I mean, the funny thing about, you know, if they're messing up your story, one of the wonderful things of being a writer is the book is always there, and the TV show is its own thing. In my case, I think they give it more mass appeal. I love the show, and it's different than the book, and I have an enormous amount of respect because, you know, when I give people a book that's like in first person or something where it's like it takes place over 14 months and they turn it into a thriller, I'm kind of in awe of what these writers can do. And I've only had positive experiences, and I've only had one. Well, I've had mostly positive experiences. And so it's not necessarily that they're going to make it worse, but you just kind of have to understand the situation. A book can be as idiosyncratic as it wants, and it's been cool that TV has gone that way a little bit. You know, you were talking about how there's so many more streamers, and there was a lot more idiosyncratic shows, and it was cool. And like, TV was like, you know, smart people were talking about it, and you had all these great shows. I mean, you kind of need to understand the medium. If you're spending $50 or $100 million on a show or movie, it has to be international, it has to be really broad, and it has to have more of a mass appeal. So there's some, like, the medium is the message angles to this, where that's TV film. It's a broader medium, and maybe that's why we're book people, you know. And sometimes they make it better, and then sometimes, you know, they make it worse.
I think you're introducing the foundation of the story as well. So again, you can look at classics like a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, right? How many times has that been adapted? And it has a totally different iteration, but the heart of the story is the same. And I bet everyone in here has a different opinion on which is the best version of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, right?
The original.
And that's what you are doing when you are in entertainment. You are making a version of a story that you think will resonate with where people are today. Like, that's it. And it doesn't mean it can't be remade. Like, I would love to see Night Agent in 75 years. They'd all be like on jets and shit and doing other cool stuff. But like, do you know, and again, I think it goes back to the idea of when you write a story and then you give up the option, you are essentially just inviting others to elevate that story with their specific niche and craft. So there is sometimes a tension between readers saying, I loved the book, how dare they change this ending, why did they do that? But you're actually doing the Lord's work for marketing companies because you're being pissed off and talking about it, is making that movie more relevant, right?
Yep.
So love it, hate it, I'm creating something that's gonna get a reaction in the moment because again, I'm a business. I just want you talking about it, I want you watching it, I don't care if you hated it, but you might watch the next adaptation in 10 years.
Yes, absolutely.
Also, I think it's a difference between taking a book that was intensely fiction and then fictionalizing it more, opposed to like a true story or a memoir, or you know what I mean, and then fictionalizing it, right?
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
kind of hard to,
I'm getting the 1 minute mark. Wow. But I do want to, I'm not going to be able to take any more questions because we're at time, but you guys are going to be book signing and then out there. But I do want to thank you, and I guess we could maybe, if there's any parting wisdom, just very quick, 30 seconds and under, for those authors now that are looking at possibly optioning their book. Is it perseverance? Is it a good agent? Knowing your voice? But what's just one creative thought? And I don't know who wants to take that question.
I say really, I got really lucky finding my Hollywood agent, but I was ready at that time. After phone conversation, he was like, send me your writing, and I had stuff ready after all the years of work that I put in. If I had met him 10 years ago, it would have just been a nice conversation. So keep going, and keep going.
Yeah, so I think a lot of it is timing, the right people in the right hands. Yeah.
And I mean, the most practical nuts and bolts thing is like, try to get a huge New York literary agent, because they just assign you a TV film agent who's at one of the major agencies, and they can be like, oh, Brad Pitt's walking down the hall, hit him with a book. And then another thing Jeanell said that really resonated with me is like, they'll find your story. Like, I was just an unemployed reporter, and my book became this, like, I never imagined, never dreamed it would happen like that. And then the night agent, my film agent got 200 no's. And it's bizarrely meritocratic. And it's really about the quality of the material. So make sure you write like the best book you can. And it's kind of wonderful because it's not like I'm in LA like going to cocktail parties or like had to be Al Pacino's assistant for 25 years. It's really about the material, and I find that to be a wonderful thing to talk to folks who maybe are aspiring, because if you just write a really great story, it will find its way.